the channel. Now, as you know, recently I picked up this '07 Ford Edge, and it's got some transmission issues. Part of the reason why I picked it up. So the issues on this thing were like super intermittent. It would only happen every once in a while. You'd clear the code out, you'd drive for a month, and it wouldn't even happen again. But I finally caught it when it was acting up. I was finally able to get some live data and actually see what was going on, but unfortunately, didn't even last long enough for me to fully diagnose it. So I was just driving down the highway, and this happened. I have no speed. Obviously, I'm parked now. The National Balloon Museum. Nice. No speed, no odometer, wrench light on, tire light's always on, and yeah, the airbag light's on. Don't know why that came on. Yeah, that's trying to take off from a stop, and it is just lurching on me. So I'm gonna give it a minute to cool down here, see if I can limp it home, and we'll try and figure out what's going on with this. Now, I know this is a super common issue on these things, and I feel pretty confident in just replacing the parts. So if you're here for that part, we're gonna shoot up to the shop in just a second here and get rolling on this thing. Let's go. Well, it's easier to just bring this up to the shop. I have use of it. Why not? This project is something you can definitely do at home, in the driveway, in the garage. You don't need fancy tools. I might not even put it on the lift, but we'll see. If it makes it easier for me, why not? And if it makes it easier to show you guys what's going on, I might as well. Now I'm going to dive into this thing and replace the couple sensors that are commonly related to these codes that it's setting and the issues that it's having. I'm going to take you along for the journey here and show you how easy this can be. Now, granted, it's not that easy, but it doesn't have to be that hard either. All right, so our main area of focus today is actually right down here, the front cover on the transmission. Now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff in the way. So I'm going to get all this stuff out of the way. I'd hope if you're attempting to tackle this project, this isn't a big concern. I'm not going to give you a walkthrough on that. So let me just, ta-da! Little trick here. This line can be a booger to get off. It goes up to there. Got this end off, got the bolts off for the block, but there's not a lot of room to work. So you can see what I'm doing here. It's using a crow's foot. That way I was able to get the best leverage on it. I tried a shorter wrench, I tried a medium wrench, just couldn't get enough leverage, so here I am, crow's foot. All right, well, one thing, I looked obviously at some of the other videos just to see the major bullet points guys are pointing out, and one of the things I didn't see talked about much was this guy right here. This is actually the drain plug for your transmission. So again, like I said, I got it up in the air on the lift. It's easy enough to get to with it on the ground, but you want to pop this guy out before you start taking any of your pan bolts out, and that way you can get all that transmission fluid out of there. Nice and clean, easy way to do it, instead of making a huge mess. There we go. All right, there we go, got all the bolts out. You want to make sure you keep track of which ones go where. There's the ones with the studs and the ones without. I just put a little mark on the front of the pan so I know which ones go where when I'm going back together. Now, should be a matter of just popping this guy off. There we go. Here's a look at the guts, what we're working with. One of the guys we're going for is back here. This wire here goes around the back side of the valve body, and that's one of the sensors. The other one's actually down here on the side of the transmission, but it comes up through the case. So we gotta get this valve body out of the way and get all this unhooked. Now I know this looks a little goofy, but this valve body is held on with some very specific bolts at very specific lengths. I like to just take a piece of cardboard, jab a bunch of holes in it in the pattern that I'm taking them off. And that way I can just put them right in place and I remember exactly where they go. So I'm gonna get these bolts yanked out, get them thrown in here so I don't misplace them, and we'll see where we're at inside this transmission. All right, one part down, one more to go. Now to just pop the rest of the bolts out for the actual valve body and get all this mess out of the way, I'll try and throw some bolt schematics or bolt diagrams in here along the way, as well as putting like torque specs and any of that pertinent information. So hopefully you don't have to go out hunting for that stuff. I forgot a bolt hole. I'll have to add one. Ah, there we go. All right, now with any luck, I got all the correct bolts out, and this should slide right out, just like that. Now with all that out of the way, we're down to the actual meat and potatoes of what we're after. I'll bring you in here in a second, but basically just your two sensors. All right, really bring you in here. That guy right there is the first sensor we're after. And you can see the wiring right here. It kind of snakes in and behind, and it's actually down here on the outside of the case. So I'll need to get under here, take the bolt out for that, and it all snakes back through this way. Now I've seen guys use string and shoelaces and whatever random flexible thing they can get through there. We'll see how I do it. I'm not 100% sure yet. Might be pulling the shoelace off my shoe. Just right there. That's the little guy we're after. Little 8mm bolt. Pop that out. And we'll start fishing this line back through here. This connector can be a little bit of a pain to get all the way back through. There we go. That is out. Now I'm going to try and do this without using any string or any kind of tricks. If you get this position just right, it'll just slide in and right through. Now if you could tell, it kind of goes in and goes to the left here and then kind of goes up, and that's where it comes out in a little area right here in the top. So if you get that all positioned right and just go, you can see that just goes right in there. And just feed it through. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. There we go. Simple as that. That pushed all the way in. Feed it through. Boom, right into place. I'll throw the bolt in that, we'll move on to the other one. The other one's much easier. You can see it's just right here. I can put my hand on it and pop this bolt out real quick. Sensor out of the way. Okay, same thing, just reverse. This guy just slides right in there. Can't really see where the hole is. There it is. Bolt back in. we're about ready to start going back together with this thing. Before I do, I'm going to go around, clean up this lip. You can see all this just corrosion junk on here. I'm going to get that all cleaned off so I have a nice surface for my gasket to seal against. It is just a rubber seal, so I'm going to reuse it. I didn't buy any gaskets or anything for this job. We'll cross the fingers and hope that works for me. Like I said before, you guys can do this on the ground. This isn't you must have a lift to do this project kind of thing. It does make it slightly easier, but it also makes it easier for me to show you how to do all this. And kind of a win-win. So anyway, don't get discouraged if you don't have a lift, because a lot of us didn't. I didn't have a lift. I don't have a lift at home, as you've seen in other videos. I still knock a lot of this stuff out. This one just happened to be the case where I wanted to do it here, and just made things easier. All right, gasket surface is all cleaned up, got all that corrosion and crap off there. Make sure if you guys do that, wipe out the inside of your transmission, get all that junk out of there, because otherwise, guess where it's going? Further in, and it's gonna get stuck in all your bits and bobs inside here and cause havoc. So make sure you get that clean. Well, time to go back together. Pretty much just the reverse of what we just did. I'm not gonna bore you with that. I'll come back when we get everything close to buttoned up. One thing I forgot to mention before I get too deep into this is that, well, two things. When you're putting your valve body in, there are dowels that this thing lines up on. You wanna make sure that this thing sits on those dowels and slides right in. It should just kind of click in like a Lego. Now I have just one bolt holding the thing in right now, but it should just thump and just slide right into place. You do not want to force this. You don't want to start putting bolts in and ramming this thing in. You're going to bend it, you're going to hurt stuff, and your transmission's going to be junk. The other thing you want to keep an eye on is this transmission range sensor. Now this thing has a little pin. See if I can move this around. This thing has a little pin, you can see it right there, that engages with that slide. And that has to be engaged. So it's a little bit finicky to get that thing lined up and get these dowels lined up. There's one down there and one up here, and have everything in its place and just click it in. But it's worth it. Take your time, do it right, or you're gonna regret it when you're putting a whole new transmission in. So, figured I'd shoot that real quick and let you see it before I got this button down. 106 inch-pounds it is, and kind of like doing a cylinder head. You want to crisscross the pattern on this thing. Anyway, I'm going to get those done, and we'll keep going here. Oakley dokley. Time to put this guy back in. Kind of the same thing as before. Just make sure you're getting this right in place. There's some little tiny dowels on this one. They kind of hold it where it needs to go. You want to double check right now before you get too far that you haven't pinched any of your wiring or anything, because, well, right now it's easier to take apart. So I'm going to get this thing bolted in here. And we're about wrapped up with this. We're so close here. All we got left is plugging everything back in, putting the cover on, and then we can start putting fluids back in this thing. There we go. All right, everything plugged in, just on the home stretch now. Got to go grab the pan out of the parts washer, get it dried off, and go back together with this thing. Now don't forget, there's bolts in there, I think one down here, that are different from all the other bolts. Well, kind of like with the inside of the transmission, you want to make sure you got this thing good and cleaned out. Get any of that parts washer solvent, brake clean, whatever you use to clean it up with. Get that wiped off. Make sure this seal, if you're not replacing it, is all clean, ready to go. I'm just giving it a final kind of wipe down here. Yep. That looks good. Let's go ahead and put this thing in. Well, pan's on and I'm starting to go back together. Again, it's just the reverse of what you took apart before. It's all the hoses and the air filter assembly and all that. But I did want to make mention of something. As I'm taking this thing apart initially, I noticed that my upper radiator hose was a little damp, just right around the water neck. Not actively leaking, but a little bit damp. So when I went to take the hose off, guess what? Hose clamp. Yeah, it's in 2 pieces. That thing was rusted out and literally just fell off the hose when I touched it. So it's a good thing that I found that, but it's also a warning to you guys. Make sure you're just checking simple things like that. Hoses, belts, you know, good time to replace your air filter. If you need one, you're already gonna have it out. Look in the throttle body, see how much carbon buildup is in there. Not a bad time to pull it off, clean it, stuff like that. It never hurts to do a little bit of maintenance while you're in here doing a major repair. I'll give you a perfect example. Not really maintenance, but just something nice. So in the background, while I was waiting for, fluids to drain and stuff like that, the couple brackets that I had to take off were looking rusty, the bolts were crusty, they came out hard, and I just wanted to do something simple to clean them up. Now this is the bracket that goes under the air filter. This is the one that holds the side of the housing to the core support. And like I said, these were both very rusty along the edges and all around. So, simple thing, just clean them up real quick, give them a coat of paint. I even went as far as to clean the bolts up and give them some paint, but mainly just because I was already wire wheeling the threads anyway, because they kind of came out hard. But it's just a simple thing that when you're going back together, it'll make your vehicle that much nicer, and next time you go to take it apart, you're not going to fight it so bad. Great, well, everything's back together. Only thing left to do is fire this thing up, top off all the fluids, take it for a drive and see how it does. May need to clear any codes that are set in there, but other than that, yeah, just make sure it's working like it should. Good to go. I've been putting this off for quite a while. Finally got some time to do it. Really happy to do it. I can really start driving this thing again. So, with that being said, I appreciate you hanging out with me. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Fire this thing up. Let's warm up.